Hello, everybody. It's Pastor Jay, and we are reading one chapter a day, the New Testament in a year. We're in Mark chapter 13, and today we're going to be talking about the abomination of desolation. How exciting! But really, the theme is watch, be ready, watch, live ready. And this is the thing that's really important. The disciples are leaving the temple with Jesus, and they're so impressed by the architecture, by the stones, by the false sense of security of the rugged and strong structure and walls. And Jesus, he tells them, all this is going to be destroyed. And of course, this is amazing to them because these are huge rocks and an amazingly well set up structure. And there's a lot of things that's going to happen along the way before that happens. But we also know that in 70 A.D., the great general Titus, Roman general, did destroy the actual temple. And this is probably a precursor to the final happenings. Eventually, the entire earth will be destroyed. We'll have a new heaven and a new earth. Nothing on this earth is permanent but souls. Our souls will make it. So it's a very false sense of security to put your trust in things no matter how permanent they seem. They're not. So then Jesus talks about the signs of the ages to be watching for. So here you go. You ready? He said, many will come, saying they are the Christ. Check. I've been to India, especially. There's messiahs all over the place. Wars, rumors of wars. Check. Nations against nations. Check. Earthquakes. Check. Famines and troubles. Check. This, he says, is the beginning of sorrows. A lot of these things are things we're living in now. Some of these things will increase, and we'll see how those things go. Then it goes to say that they'll deliver you up to councils and kings for my name's sake. Well, you can see where that did happen to the disciples, and it's happened throughout the years. Brother against brother, check. I mean, we had that in the Garden of Eden, just outside of the Garden of Eden with the Cain and Abel. And then in Mark 13:13, he says, and you shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, but he that shall endure until the end, the same shall be saved. How do you endure until the end? By being ready, by living ready. And then in verse 14, this is the turning point, if you will, of this entire chapter, because everything we've read so far are things that have already begun to happen now, that we can see happening now, that even happened in the disciples' lifetime, many of these things. But in Mark 13:14, he says, but when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing where he ought not, let the reader understand. What it's telling you to do is go back there and look at Daniel. Let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Since he mentioned the book of Daniel, I just want to read a short clip from Daniel 9:27. It says, then he shall confirm a covenant. This is the Antichrist will confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, particularly with Israel for 1 week. 1 week, 7 days, 7 years of tribulation, half of a week. It says, but in the middle of the week, so what is a week of 7 days, half of a week is 3.5 years. 3.5 years, the middle of the tribulation, the Antichrist breaks the covenant it made with Israel. It takes over the temple, stops sacrifices. And then it says, and on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate. So this is absolutely what Jesus was talking about, until the consumption which is determined and poured out to the desolate. So this is what happens. The Antichrist, this all happens after the rapture, in the middle of the tribulation. And so if you're seeing that, then you didn't go up in the rapture. And what do you do when you see this? You run. You don't go back for your iPhone. You don't go back for your photo album. You don't go back for anything precious. You just run. You get out of there. And then it says in verse 21, if anyone says, look, there's the Christ. Here's somebody who can help. Don't believe him. Christ is not on the earth at this time. And so there's going to be many false Christs come out. It's going to be a very spiritually confusing time. I plan on watching this from heaven and praying for people that are on the earth. And it says there's going to be a lot of deceiving signs. And then it says in 13:23, but take heed and see, I have told you all things beforehand. Why is he telling us these things beforehand? To get ready. By the way, you're going to find out in chapter 14, it didn't sink into the disciples because in just a few hours later, they weren't ready for what happens in chapter 14. It's just astonishing. But what Jesus was saying is be ready, live ready, watch, keep your eyes open. And then he goes into the lesson of the fig tree in verse 28. He says, you know it's summer because you see the leaves coming. So a lot of things you'll see happening as they come. You can smell it in the air. You can see it coming. And you'll know that it's at the door. It's about to happen. So it won't be a total surprise when Jesus comes back for those who are watching and for those who are ready. And then he says, but of that day and that hour knoweth no man, not the angels that are in heaven, neither the Son, but the Father. So if anybody tells you they know when the rapture is, they're lying or they're deceived. And he says, what do you do about this? And this is where you have 4 watches in this little section of the closing. It says, what do? You take heed and you watch. Watch number 1, and pray, for you know not what the time is. And then he says, for the Son of Man is as a man taking a far journey, who left his house, gave authority to his servants and to every man his work, and commanded the porter to watch. Number 2, watch. We just read this parable in chapter 12, remember? And then 35 starts with the word, watch ye therefore, for you know not when the master of the house cometh, at even, or at midnight, at the cock crowing, or in the morning, lest coming suddenly he find you sleeping. That's not being ready. We need to be ready, unless he comes and he finds you sleeping. But you won't be sleeping if you're watching. And I say unto you all, watch. That's verse 37. So he ends with watch. So I think this is pretty simple that we can see what this theme is. Watch, be ready, live ready. There's only one way to be ready when a surprise comes, when something comes quickly, and that is to live ready. So, we've completed the overview of Mark 13. We'll see you tomorrow for 1 chapter a day, the New Testament in a year.